All right, today we're going to do 6.6. It's the final note set in all of the AP Macro curriculum, which is really exciting. It is called Real Interest Rates and International Capital Flows. So it is just a combination of loanable funds and what we have learned in Unit 6, and it's super simple. So on your papers, I want you to go ahead and draw a loanable funds graph. And I will do it alongside you right here. So a loanable funds graph has X and Y axis. Oop, boop, 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 boop. Let me make that a little bit bigger. Upward sloping supply, downward sloping demand. Your axis labels here are quantity of loanable funds and real interest rates. Okay? Actually, if we're being so for real, then you need to write that out. If this were an FRQ, real interest rates, okay? Supply of loanable funds, demand of loanable funds, and quantity in IR. You could do R, RIR. I'm going to do R. They're just a lot less picky on this one. All right, so here's loanable funds. Remember that supply of loanable funds is basically like, is there money in banks? Is there savings in banks? And if there's money in banks, that means the banks can loan it out. Demand of loanable funds is, are people demanding loans? Is the government demanding loans because they're deficit spending more than what they brought in tax revenue? Or are businesses demanding loans? So this is savers, this is borrowers, all right? So let's bop on forward. So essentially what this means is when something changes in the foreign exchange market, it can change loanable funds. When something in loanable funds changes, it can change the foreign exchange market because it all depends on, is money flowing in or out of America? Is there inflow or outflow? But for the most part, it's going to impact supply of loanable funds in banks. So you'll see that here in a second. So this part up here is talking about when the foreign exchange market impacts loanable funds. This part down here is talking about when loanable funds impacts the foreign exchange market. And we're going to do both scenarios. Loanable funds would impact foreign exchange because loanable funds changes the interest rate. And if the interest rate changes, then foreign investors will be more interested in American bonds or money market accounts, okay? So let's talk about inflow, outflow. So I have two little examples here. This one would be capital inflow. Capital flight is just a way of saying capital outflow. So if we see that there's a lot of money coming into the United States through foreign exchange in the capital financial account or the current account, if there's more money coming into the United States, that just means that there's more money that's flowing through United States banks. So this is going to increase supply of loanable funds. We call it supply 2. We give it a new quantity and a new real interest rate. Okay, so we'll see that if there's capital inflow, that means that real interest rates will go down because supply of loanable funds will increase. All right, now the opposite is also true. If there's capital flight or capital outflow, meaning Americans are spending more money overseas, Americans are buying more overseas things, Americans are investing in overseas bonds, and that means the supply of loanable funds will decrease. And so we would call this S2. Quantity 2, and you'll see that real interest rates goes up. So this is an example of when foreign exchange impacts loanable funds. We're going to look at the opposite now, when loanable funds impacts foreign exchange. So In the little AP curriculum, it says financial capital will flow toward the country with relatively higher interest rates. So, what happens to the value of the dollar as a result of the change in real interest rate when Americans save more? So, in this scenario, let's say Americans save more. Let's go to loanable funds. If Americans save more, saving on loanable funds is in the supply area. So if they save more, it's going to increase the supply of loanable funds. Oh, that was terrible. Let me try that again. Increase the supply of loanable funds. Supply of loanable funds. 2. We're going to get a new real interest rate, which went down. And a new quantity that went over. Okay? So in this scenario, because real interest rate went down, according to the curriculum, financial capital will not flow towards the United States. So how does this impact the exchange rate of the dollar? In this scenario, the dollar has a lower interest rate, meaning, or America has a lower interest rate, meaning that foreign investors are not going to put their money into U.S. money market accounts, the U.S. bond accounts, U.S. banks. So, because the interest rate isn't as good, they could probably get a better interest rate in a different country or in their own country. So, we kind of got 2 possible answers here. Demand for the dollar would decrease. So demand for the, I would have gotten that wrong. I have to have that arrow. Demand for the dollar would decrease because people are not demanding the dollar because they're not exchanging their money. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. They're not exchanging their money for the dollar. And thus, demand for the dollar would go down and the dollar depreciates because there's not financial capital flowing into the United States. You could also say that supply of the dollar increases if you wanted to go that route. It depends on what the FRQ says. If it says do supply, then do supply. If it says do demand, then do demand. So if supply of the dollar increases, why would that be happening? That's because Americans are, there's capital outflow. Americans are like essentially going to the foreign exchange market and giving up dollar to try and exchange it for something else to go invest in a country with better interest rates, invest in the bond market or money market account in a country with better interest rates. Either way, the price of the dollar will go down, which means it depreciates in this scenario. All because loanable funds impacted real interest rates. Okay? Let's do the opposite here, or just like a different idea. What might happen to the exchange rate of the dollar when investment increases? So, this is a tricky question. Actually, it's kind of a poorly worded question. This is a Miss Keller question, which is why it's poorly worded. So when they're talking about investment here, remember in econ, we're always talking about investment. Like this means business investment. Okay. So we've kind of got 2 options here. Business investment is when businesses are taking out loans to buy capital goods. So what happens on loanable funds? And again, we've kind of got 2 answers. So you could say that businesses like essentially empty their bank accounts and thus the supply of loanable funds decreases because they're using their like savings to purchase capital goods. I'm going to like crap this graph out real quick. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make this really short. Okay. So in that scenario, real interest rate goes up. Or opposite thought, school of thought, sometimes there's 2 right answers. Demand for loanable funds goes up because businesses are demanding goods. Real interest rate goes up, goes up. And the same thing happens. Real interest rate goes up. So no matter which way you swing it here, real interest rate will go up. Because real interest rate has gone up in the United States, foreign investors will be more interested in U.S. bond market, U.S. money market accounts, U.S. financial investments. Thus, money is going to flow into the United States. Capital inflow is what we call that. And it'll end up in the capital financial account because it's investing in a long-term investment like bonds or stocks. So because real interest rate went up, there's two correct answers. Other countries will be demanding the US dollar. Demand goes up. The price or exchange rate of the US dollar goes up. And there we go. All right, so demand goes up for the US dollar. Or your answer could have been the supply of the US dollar is going to decrease in the foreign exchange market. Sorry about that. So we call supply decrease, new price, P2. Ooh, that was beautiful. Lovely. Good job, Miss Keller. Okay. Either way, whether you say demand goes up because foreign investors are demanding the US dollar, that would make the price of the US dollar go up. Or when foreign investors go to the foreign exchange market and exchange their money, they're taking US dollar out of the foreign exchange market and going and investing it in United States banks and the United States bonds. Either way, the price goes up. So this is an appreciation of the US dollar. Because real interest rates rose, the price of the US dollar went up. So I want you to notice something. Because real interest rates went down, the price of the US dollar depreciated. Because real interest rates went up, the price of the US dollar appreciated. You notice how they have a direct relationship. The arrows follow each other. That should help you there. That's all. Thank you.